Can you believe it? This will be our school. In just a matter of seconds, demolished into millions of pieces. All 50 years of history will disappear just as quickly as the very building so many mainliners have called their home for so many years. But while the building itself may no longer be around, its stories will remain for generations. Let's go back a few years, to fall of '58, when Eisenhower was our president and Nixon was his vice. 1958 was the year Bobby Fischer won the US Chess Championship. The Americans put their first satellite into orbit. Castro begins attacks on Havana, and the hula hoop is introduced. But the most important thing that happened just 50 short years ago, well, that's the year good old Harriton opened its doors.
And when we graduated, by the time we graduated in '66, the Vietnam War had really started to take off. And so it was really an important thing. Probably maybe 10 or 15% of my class went directly into service.
It was a bad economic time. It wasn't good politically. We grew up with a very strong distrust of the government because of the whole Nixon thing. But Harriton was like a cocoon. You had your things going on. You really not aware at that age of really what was going on.
During all that craziness, my whole psyche, everything was Harriton High School.
As far as Harriton at the time, drugs were non-existent.
Drugs were a big thing. It was very, very, very easy in the 70s to get drugs.
I'd say that we partied pretty hard.
On the lower lot, yeah, there was kegs.
We'd get quarts of beer. I mean, and we're talking quarts of beer. You'd have a party and you couldn't imagine how you got back home.
And one of the guys filmed a keg party in the lower lot. Teachers just didn't do anything about it.
And then in the 80s.
Special education field, it was very small. It's become quite big. And Lowman School District reputation is so good that people move into the district because they might have a special needs kid. During the early 90s and stuff, there was this big thing about should we close Harriton, should we not close Harriton, because the population was dropping. The thought was maybe let's have one big mega high school.
War in Iraq, I think, definitely did affect some of the teachers' style of teaching when it came about, explaining, trying to be more sensitive to certain topics.
Obama showed me that if there's something that you don't like or that you disagree with, you can change it. You can make an effort to change. I think what really makes Harriton unique is its culture.
But I think people kind of can morph in and out of various cliques as they progress.
Jock nerds are a species unique to Harriton. Nowhere else, at no other high school can you have somebody that's really smart, works really hard in academics, and is like a respected athlete.
I don't know, I guess Harriton really defined who I am just by being in all those clubs. It kind of gave me a sense of identity and made me feel comfortable.
The big war was disco versus rock and roll. We listened to things like Pink Floyd and Genesis and the Grateful Dead. And then there was disco, which you just either listened to it or you didn't.
Harriton became part of not just myself, but my kids. I was coaching, and I used to bring these 4 little boys with me to practices.
Football is probably the same as football is today. The wrestling team was good, and I think it continued to be good for years afterwards.
Harriton was a good springboard. It was known throughout the country as one of the better high schools.
The best thing about Harriton is that the reason the students are there is to learn. Other schools, that wasn't always the case.
I remember many, many years ago, a person that worked in the food service department, their windshield was broken. And I said, you know what? You kids are always telling me how much you appreciate the food service lady, but guess what happened? Her windshield was broken by some kid. So here's the deal. Tomorrow morning when you come into school, I want you to put $1 in an envelope. So the next day, the main office was mayhem. I looked over and there was a little freshman. He had 75 cents. He was trying to bum a quarter from someone. so you could have $1. By the end of the morning, they had raised like $375.
What's something distinct that you remember about your time at Harriton?
I guess the fact that we pulled off Mr. Harriton was a big one. The first annual,
Definitely Mr. Scullin in the cafeteria getting up and screaming his rambunctious announcements, whatever it was for.
There was a young girl one day I was walking by and she said, "Man, I really love your tie." I said, "Really?" I don't know what, I took my tie off and said, "Here, you can have it." At graduation, it was like 3 weeks later, she gave me a gift. And the gift was a necktie, class of, which I don't remember anymore, and she had written every kid's name on that tie in the graduating class, which I thought, wow. Just to go to that trouble to sit down and do that was a pretty awesome thing.
And we were out there smoking a cigarette, and I threw either the cigarette or the match into the can, and it smoldered, it didn't light. So then I threw a match into the can, and it lit. And unfortunately, the can was located outside of the vice principal's office.
Freshman year, food fights. I remember somebody got doused in chocolate milk and then got attacked by bees. That was funny.
I think my first year there, I was at an HSA meeting, and in the middle of the meeting, the Science Olympiad team walked through the HSA meeting. Everybody got up and gave them a standing ovation. That doesn't happen in other schools.
Well, the senior prank was developed by maybe 30 to 40 guys, and what we did is we tapped into the intercom system. And so that when they did the morning report, that some music came on or whatever. We blocked the front entranceways, we blocked the walkways, we overturned cars in the front entranceway.
These guys had gone somewhere and they bought like 100 laboratory mice. They got into the school and they placed them in drawers. They were all over the whole school. And you would hear screaming all day long. They would be in the senior lobby. Guys would have a little mouse in his hand. He's talking to a girl. Next thing you know, he leaves a mouse on her shoulder. And you heard the scream. Teachers would open the desk drawer and you'd hear him screaming. I thought that was one of the cute ones. One of the best ones they ever did. They had to have help of the custodians. In the junior senior lobby, they had an old Volkswagen bus. They had all this class of stuff written. It was all decorative. It was absolutely wild. And everybody was trying to figure out how they did that. To me, a genius is if you take whatever ability that you've been given and you do the very best you can with whatever ability you're given. In my mind, you're a genius. You know, let's not forget all the kids who worked as hard as they could and only got C's.
it kind of feels like you have a connection, you share something, even when it's just the tunes.
When I came to Harriton, I was this short little, like, nerdy, lazy, overweight kid. In Harriton, the environment, the kids, the teachers, they've helped me work past that.
So it's just little segments and vignettes of Harriton that stick in my mind. Students are just so insightful and so intelligent, and it's a joy to come to work.